Hello, I think I'm live. There we go. Welcome to How-To Diorama. Today we are going to look at building a Savonarola chair. I got into this because I love these Savonarola chairs. I've seen them since I was a little kid. I'm going to go over to my my other display so you can see what that looks like. Let me do that, and that's the Savonarola chair. And so I'd seen these as a kid, growing up, but I didn't know it was called a Savonarola chair. But I knew it was like this old-timey chair. And so I was really excited to build it. So I built it in scale. I built it for my D&D Diorama. Hey, Jordy's here. Hello. Thanks very much, Jordy. Let me get you in there. Hello. Thanks very much, Jordy, for coming in. So the Savonarola chair was something I wanted to build. This is a D&D Diorama. So it really fits, Hey, Wieland is here. Hello, Wielands. Good evening from Germany. Thank you very much for coming in. So building this chair, I'm going to show you how I built it. I built one the first time. I didn't like it so much. I went back and rebuilt it, and I really like it. So I'm going to show you how to do that today. Let's go back to my other screen because I've got other things to show you. Let me get there. So today we're going to look at that Savonarola chair. We're going to look at some wainscoting that I did last week. I also did some wood railings, and I did this little secret escape panel, which is really fun. And this is all for Barrett's Coffee House. This is my D&D Diorama. This is just the top half. There's a bunch that goes below that. And so this top half is at the very top, the accounting offices of Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe. I did change the spelling because this is the actual old style spelling that, you probably seen in cartoons and things growing up. Hey, Scott is here. Hello, just a second. Hello, Scott. Howdy. Thanks very much for coming in. And John is here. Thank you very much for making it here, John. And happy Friday to everybody. I always forget this. So if you wouldn't mind liking and subscribing, I do this every Friday, and then I do shorts every day. So let's go back to that and see. So here is the diorama that I'm building. It is made to play a D&D campaign within. And so it's called Barrett's Coffee House Crondor, but we're right now working on this top level, just the top level here, the accounting offices of Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe, and part of the warehouse. So that's what we're working on. Hey, Homefront is here. Thank you very much, Homefront Forge, for making it in. That's really, really cool. So the next thing we got is, this is all based on the book that I love. It's my favorite fantasy book, my favorite fantasy author, Raymond Feist. And the book, like this whole multi-year journey of me reading these books from Raymond Feist has developed into, there's a whole world of Midkemia that these books are based in. And since I've been reading it for so long, for so many years, and I reread Magician, the book that we just saw, I reread that every year. And so this is a really, really fun diorama for me. I've literally been living in like these buildings and stuff like that since the mid-'80s because I just love the storyline. I love the characters. And if you haven't read Magician or any Raymond Feist books, please do, just to see if you like it. I love it. It's a wonderful fantasy story and really, really enjoyable. Hey, Wheelans has read them. That's wonderful. I'm going to get over here. He says, Feist story is great. Read them myself. That is so great, Wheelans, because I found them when I was in Germany. No joke. I was stationed in Berlin in the late 80s. And with the military, the army, and I was there for 3.5 years. And that's where I found Feist. I found his first book, Fairy Tale, which is not medieval and fantasy stuff like that. I mean, it's a fantasy, but it's like a modern day fantasy. And that was a fantastic book. And that got me into reading Raymond Feist because I love his writing style. That's a real big thing for me personally. I don't know if that's important for you, but I have to find an author that writes in a certain way that I can connect with, and I totally did with Raymond Feist. So I haven't read all of his books, but I've read the vast majority of all of his books. I've got 20 or so in my office. I think I've showed that a few times. So without all of that, let's jump back into this. So here I have Magician, and this is basically everything I did this week. So right here in the middle of the picture, we've got the chair. There's the Savonarola chair. Right behind it, I've got some railings. I made those this week. Turned some little banisters at the end of them. I did the wainscoting on the back of the wall here. I made this stand-up lift top desk, so I've made, a few tables and desks and things like that so far, but they don't really look period. This one is just a desk, and it doesn't necessarily look period to me. It's just a desk. These I think look really nice, and they are period, but they're more, it's not a desk. It's more of like an inn table, like in an inn or a pub or an eating house or something like that. So that's these tables. So I hadn't made a desk yet, and I did this week, and I really like it because it is the type of desk that I remember seeing in movies and things like that, where an accountant would like have this standing or maybe a tall chair sitting behind this very tall desk. The lift up kind of desk, which is what this simulates, that lift up part, this lifts up, so you have storage underneath it. It's a very classic style desk, and was used back then. So I'm very happy with that. The only thing I'm not happy is the legs. I think my legs got a little bit big on that desk. So that's something I'm going to have to look at in the future. So let's go back to these here pictures. And one of the last things I did is, if you look through that doorway all the way in back, you can kind of see this opening. Well, that is a secret escape little panel that slides out of the way. And it was really fun to make that. And we'll look at it later. So here is an actual Savonarola chair. And it was, well, I'm going to back up here a little bit, because when I started reading about this, it was built by a friar, a religious friar, around the time of the Medici. I'm sorry, in France, in Florence, and time of Leonardo and right around that time. So it was this iteration, I guess, of the chair was designed by Savonarola, but it was based on a chair that Romans would take with them on campaigns. And at that time, it was just kind of a folding chair. It was like a stool, and then they could break it. I didn't have the arms in the back. But then Savonarola built it into this chair, and these do collapse. That's the other thing. They look really cool and blah, blah, blah. But the original ones actually would collapse, and they would take these on campaign with them. So really, really ancient chair, really cool, intriguing design. I actually, being a woodworker, I'd like to build one full scale. I just haven't yet. And I think that would be a fun project. And the same technique, parts of the same technique I'm going to show you today, I would use in that. The pattern, the template, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to look at all that today. I'm going to show you step by step how I built this. Okay. Hey, Benny is here. Hello. Benny is from Germany as well. Whelans is from Germany too. So thank you very much for coming in, Benny. Benny, nice to see you. Okay. So let's go back and look at these here pictures. So there's the real Savonarola chair. Like I said, it does collapse. The little bolt right in the middle where those pieces come together, that is actually a steel rod that goes through there, and it's a hinge. So this thing comes up. The back slides up and off. These things come together, and it can be packed and carried with you. It's like it's an early folding chair. So this is what the monstrosity looks like after I get everything glued together. I'm going to get to this point. I'm going to show you how I got here and everything. But this is what it looks like when I've just got it glued together. The older one I did is in the background. And when I get it to this point, then it's really a series of shaping and bringing it down to the actual size that I want, the dimensions that I want. Then I made the back. This is before sanding. And I think it came out great. So we're going to see how to make that whole thing. So the first thing I did was I drew this on some brass. The reason is I wanted a little, I've got it over here. I wanted a template that I could utilize more than once. I want to make more than one of these. I've made two, but I'm going to make more with the thinner wood, and you'll see what I mean as we go forward here. So I started out there. I just real roughly drew it out, and you'll notice these little spiky deals on there. That's, some of them had that, so I thought I would incorporate that. I did not end up incorporating that in the design, but it's in the template. So there's the template. The hole in the middle is very, very important. I sized that hole so that I can take these apart, line them up, as you see here in these two pictures I've got superimposed over each other. So that told me that my pattern was correct. And then I went ahead and started going into the building of it. So now I've got a video and I'm going to talk over it. There's no sound in this video at all. So I am going to present that and show it to you so that you can see how I built the Savonarola chair. So there it is. After it's been built, here's the brass that I just showed you that I made. Then I basically, I cut a bunch of, this is walnut. I cut a bunch of walnut to length and then I stacked them up. It's really important to use all the same, correctly dimensioned wood. Everything has been sanded prior to cutting to these individual lengths. And then once I've got enough, I think I've got 10 little pieces of wood here, then I tape them up. Now, the taping of these things is pretty important. If I don't get these things into because how I'm going to work with it later, if I don't get these things all lined up initially and then drill that hole and use that hole as an indexing hole, the whole thing will fall apart and it just won't look good. So that's what I'm trying to do. So here, I've got them lined up. There we go. Why is it not playing now? I think I broke it. Did I broke it? I think I broke my, it doesn't want to play anymore. So I am going to remove and I am going to add that again. I'm so sorry. It shouldn't take that long, but I do think it's good to see this process. So let me get that back going here. There it is. So I'm going to skip ahead to where we was. We're cutting them and then I'm taping them. And once they're taped, then I'm going to go over to the drill press and I'm going to drill that hole I was talking about. And that hole is to place this. This is I'm going to see if this is better. Yeah. So this is just a finish nail. And that finish nail fits right in the center of my little template. So with the nail in there through the wood, holding the template on the wood, I'm tracing everything around that. And then I take it to my bandsaw. Now, when I'm doing this on the bandsaw, I want to cut stuff away. And I'm going to go with the bigger picture here so you can see a little bit better. What I'm doing here is I'm using the bandsaw not to just cut something off, but I'm shaping with it. Now, the picture here, you can see how I'm shaping this. I'm going very carefully with the bandsaw blade, but I'm not just cutting. you'll notice when I move back and forth and I'm whittling this stuff away, I'm wearing away toward the pattern. Now, this is a different, these are for tables, but I just wanted to show you the technique that I use to wear this stuff away. I'm also holding my iPhone during this, which is not what I would recommend, but you can do this if you have a bandsaw or something like that, and it works great. So once I came back to my bench after cutting those off, there's something really key here that I don't think I'm showing very well. So let me pause that real quick. When I went to cut, you know, I've got that all I've got that all taped together. I did not cut the ends off, meaning that when I don't have a way to show it really very well, but when all that wood is stacked up and I've got this drawn on there and I'm at the bandsaw cutting, I didn't cut off the ends over here and I didn't cut off the ends over here, meaning that the wood was still attached. And that's really important. This part that I'm doing right now, I'm doing like the initial shaping, and I'm trying to get everything filed down to the lines that I originally drew from my template. So that's what I'm doing right here. So let's continue with that. By filing this down, but leaving those two ends connected, I can keep everything together. Here, I'm now cutting away the two ends that were holding everything together. I'm being very careful, as you can tell. Once that's cut off, then I can take it back. I can disassemble all of it. And you see, I've got all my pieces cut out and they can fit together and give us our pattern. Now, the one that I'm showing you here, the build that I'm showing you here, this is, and I'm going to go back to me real quick. Whoops. I'm pushing wrong buttons. This little part here, it's important that I start this gluing. Here it is. Here's the chair. It's important that I start this gluing with the first two pieces. Man, they got to be just right. And the reason is, when they're on that little fixture, you're going to see it here in a second. When they're on that little fixture, if I don't get the first two on there right, I don't have anything to align against because it's real floppy on there. So here, you see what I'm doing there. I know it's a little bit out of camera there, out of the shot, but I'm getting those first two set. Once those two are set, now I can start to add each one, let it dry as they need to so I don't mess it up. And once they're all stacked on there, then I can do the second part of shaping. And the second part of shaping is when the chair is almost all assembled. I don't have the back on it yet, but it's just like that. So now what we were looking at before was the first chair I did. This is also the first chair I did and doing some sanding on it. But those other pictures were the second chair with thinner wood, and the thinner wood was much better. So after I've got those sanded, glued together, here's something that I really need to concentrate on to make it look right in the end. And that is, I need to insert right in here some little pieces of wood, and that's what these little pieces are. I'm inserting those small pieces of wood to close off these open ends here. So I have a full arm, I guess. It's just filler because, of course, you know, these are stacked. So you can see right there. So once they are stacked, I'm going to go back to our video here and make it a little bigger. Once they are stacked, that is what I am talking about. I filled in here and I filled in here with other pieces, then went back, did some more shaping and filing and stuff like that to get it all looking pretty. And then I could go ahead and move forward. The next part was putting on the back, and the back is it's kind of made, and I'll show you how I did that today. It's kind of made by just pressing into the wood. I'm not carving it. I'm just kind of making impressions in it. And that worked out pretty great. So that is the video. So we can remove that. And I still have plenty of pictures, and we're going to do the top down. But that's the basic process of making that chair. As I'm talking to you, and if you have questions, please ask, because there's little fiddly things that I did along the way to, to build it that I kind of left out of there. It just didn't work right with the filming. So ask, please. I love to answer any questions you might have. Hey, Mark is here. Thanks very much for coming in, Mark. Mark D. Maker just joined last week, and he found us last week. So it's really, really cool. Thanks very much, Mark. So once I got that built, now I'm going to go back to our display over here. I got to do that. Then I started on the wainscoting. So wainscoting is just like low paneling, right? It's just the paneling that I'm putting up on not quite halfway down. I think it needs to be like chair top level, something like that, And so I put this wainscoting in. I didn't get a lot of pictures of it when I was doing the installation, but we'll take a look. You see it wraps around all the way around there. It's not too hard to build. I think the biggest thing is down here at the bottom. I'm going to show you how, or kind of talk you through how I did it, because down at the bottom, so first thing I did, why don't I go to the top down? I think that's going to give us a better picture of what I'm trying to talk about, because we can see the actual thing that I did it on. So let's do that. That's the wrong one. That's the right one. So here's the top down. So when I'm working on this, and just a note of thank you, my focusing and stuff like that I've had done for the past few live streams. I talked with John Robeck last Friday night on our group build. And he talked to me about a couple of settings. I think I'm going to have much better settings. You see, it's not really being a problem with focusing and stuff. So thank you very much, John. You rocked it, sir, because I can see now. So to put these wood panels in, I just literally cut a single piece of the backing first, and I just basically stacked this in here. So I did the backing first, the flat boards in here first. Then I did the baseboard at the bottom, and then I did the verticals, then I did the top, and then I did the cap. I mean, it was just really a process of building this stuff up as I went through it, the wood that I'm using, I used to think this was mahogany. Now I believe it's hemlock. It's a really pretty wood. It's got great grain. It's also very thin. It's veneer. So this is what I used for my paneling. I did the base panels with this stuff. Like I said, I put that on first. Then I go with the baseboard. Then I do the verticals. Now I'm going to go back to that picture and just show you. This right here shows a little notch in the bottom. That little notch, I guess, is not necessary, but because I rounded over the sides of that wood, the little notch really helps in keeping everything aligned. When you're trying to put this stuff in, if you just lay it on there with a little glue in the back, it'll work, but you got to, use all these tools and stuff like that. By having that notch in there, I'm indexing one side of the vertical that I'm putting on top of that wood. Here's the wood, and I'm putting that vertical on top there. By indexing the bottom, man, it's one of those techniques that you learn when you're doing woodworking that's going to help you make it perfectly vertical. It's easier to work with. I can have one hand on the board. I can have one hand on my square, which I set there to make sure everything's vertical, nice and plumb and all that kind of stuff. If you don't do that, it just makes it harder. So this is a little tip just to get those in. Could I have built these separately and then installed them? Sure, absolutely. I chose to do it by basically building it up in or on the floor itself. And I think what that did was it made it a little bit more easy to figure out the placement of them. You know, I tried to get them even, but because I've got some differences where the windows are, some differences where this wall is, this is a little shorter, so that the distance, I guess, between these styles, the vertical styles, is not consistent. That's okay. If you look at an old house, they're typically consistent, but you'll come into corners and they're not. And you know, this is the kind of thing that you'll run into. So I don't necessarily say I'm trying to not build it well. I am trying to build it to show that there's some inconsistencies. This was built and then it was added on to. I didn't have this paneling, but then I added it. I think that's pretty important when you're building this old stuff. One of the things that I saw this week online was a really neat article about it was like the most sagging house in the UK or the most crooked house in the UK, and it's a little tea shop. And the house is like this. I mean, it's just like that. It's a little business, and it's natural because these structures would settle over time. The ground would move, the beams themselves would settle and down. Whatever the case may be, these oldest of these older timber frame homes have a lot of imperfections. And they were also built by folks that may not have been in a guild or whatever. It's just folks building. So, number one, I think it adds a little bit more character to it. So not everything is square and everything is just like a salt box, right? You see those homes even today that people will build, and it's just a box. And there's nothing wrong if you just want a home in a box, but there are other homes that have character, meaning that everything's not exactly right. You know, everything's not just square and stuff like that. You got your main house here. I guess the point is, over years and different families and different people owning that home, they can make changes to it. And if it's the same home, it's not going to look perfect. So kind of work that into your stuff. I think personally it makes a lot more character in what you're building. I think it adds interest by it not being 100% perfect. The other thing is, this is all scratch built, right? So when I'm building, I don't know why I did that button. This is the button I wanted. When I'm building this stuff, you know, I want to think about, it's not laser cut. I didn't buy a kit. I didn't buy it off the shelf. This is specifically something that I built by hand. That means there's only one person in the planet that has this wainscoting, these chairs and stuff like that. I talked about that last time a little bit. I like that. I built two of the where is it? Two of these chairs, right? One is really nice. This one, not so nice. I'm going to use them both because when you look up a Savonarola chair, there's all kinds. And I think that's important. People didn't always buy a set of chairs, or they didn't buy, you know, that. I mean, you could have different stuff. So think about that. A little bit of character, a little bit of stuff that's off is going to look, I think, a little bit better. If it's laser cut and everything is just, yeah, I don't know. I think you can pick that out real quick. And the other thing about laser cut stuff is it's typically plywood, which is fine. I use plywood, really, really thin plywood. But I think that when you're trying to get the character out of the wood, you're trying to get this look, this authentic look, then using plywood, it's difficult to get that look because you have to paint it to look old. You know what I mean? And some people are amazing at that. I'm not painting these. Well, I may, but right now they're not painted. They're just, you know, they just got some clear on them. And I think that clear looks great because you're seeing the wood grain. It's natural. You know, I think that looks a lot better than the stuff that you can buy and the stuff that is laser cut. No problem with laser cut. We used to work in the laser industry, but I like building it from scratch. There was no IKEA in medieval times. I don't know, John. We might have to look into that. There could have been. I'm being facetious, obviously. But thank you. That's funny. So where are we at? After I did the paneling, then I went into the railings. And I'm pretty excited about those railings. Let's take a look at that. So there's my paneling. That's the other side of the paneling. Here's my wood railing. So this is an accounting office. So this is, does anybody remember like the Saturday Night Live sketch with Steve Martin, where he's like medieval barber? It was like in the 80s or something like that. Well, this is a medieval accounting office, and I think of it in that same tongue-in-cheek way from Steve Martin at Saturday Night Live and Chevy Chase. No, it wasn't Chevy Chase. It was Bill Murray and all those guys. And he came in and, he goes into the medieval barber, and he goes, "Oh, we need to bleed you." And so everybody that comes in, they bleed them or put leeches on them. So it was really a funny skit. In here, I thought, because I'd never heard of anybody doing a medieval barber, you hear all this medieval stuff and there's like soldiers and peasants and stuff, but barbers. So that's why I did an accounting office. Now it goes with the story too, but I thought, there were accountants in medieval times. Remember what was the Scrooge? He was an accountant, right? He was a money guy. And those tall desks, that's where I got the idea for the tall desks for this, but also because of the story from Raymond Feist. So that story had Barrett's Coffee House, and Barrett's Coffee House is what's right below this level in the diorama. And in Barrett's Coffee House, there's traders and businessmen and financial people, lawyers and things like that in Barrett's, which is one floor below this area. So my thought process is, okay, so this is where like a lot of the money changes hands in the kingdom within this story, in this medieval kingdom. And so why wouldn't you have an accounting office? And why wouldn't you have that accounting office right over Barrett's, where the people are working right below it? And there's a second element to this. So let's go back to the top down. And I know I'm talking about these railings. I'm going to get back to them, but I just want to give you why it's kind of looking like a bank or why it's kind of looking like an accounting office. And so that's what I'm doing here. So when I'm looking in here, I'm going to go to the top down. Sorry. When I'm looking in here, as I look through this door, which has a bolt on it, and on the other side of it, it can be barred from the inside. It can still be open from the inside. There's the latch, so it can still be open from inside, but it can be barred from the inside, so nobody can get in here. Well, what this is supposed to be right here is the upright man's office. And maybe it's not his office, but it's a room that he will frequent. And the upright man is a big character in the story from Raymond Feist. And the upright man, and I've explained it before, is the upright man moniker is a little bit of an ironic thing, because he is the head of the underbelly of, the thieves and stuff within Krondor, within the city that's here. So it just, for me, it made sense that I'm going to go back here, that I would have his office right here, the accounting with a door leading right into the upright man's office, the accounting office here, and right below it, all of the top financiers in the Western realm of the kingdom are right here too. It was just too perfect to me, because I have this feeling that, the big money people, and I don't want to try to get weird on this, but like the big money people in the world are also connected to the big criminals in the world. I'm not making a political statement. I'm not trying to make a worldwide statement. I'm saying in the story. We'll just leave it at that. So with his office being there right above it, that's why I had the bolt hole. So we're going to get to the bolt hole too and how I made it. But I kind of wanted to get a little bit more, I guess, depth to the story so you understood why I did the accounting office. So it's the accounting above the money lenders and the money people. And then right next to the accounting is like the lead of all of the underground activities and all of the lawlessness in the entire city. And then behind that, and that's another thing we're going to look at, he's got an escape route into a warehouse, which is where he keeps all of his stolen goods. So if you're a fan of Feist, hopefully that all makes sense. If you're not, I think it will still kind of make sense, but it would be a lot more if you were able to read the stories. So anyway, that's kind of the basis. Let's go back to this thing. So I wanted to have something like, you walk in and then here I'll have like, an accountant here. I'm actually going to put the chairs here, almost like a waiting area to get into the accounting office. And I'm even thinking about a little chain here. So it looks very kind of posh and official. I'll have a desk there, and I think I'll make another one of these. There's going to be chairs, there's going to be bookshelves, there's going to be all kinds of stuff in here. But basically, this door is just guarded by the accountants in here. And when they do want access, they can just open that up and go in if, the upright man wants them to go. So that is my little accounting office. There's got to be a lot more getting put into it, a lot more furniture. And I'm trying to figure out how to make, some of that, because I think shelves are good, but papers and, rolls of papers, back then, big ledgers and stuff like that on the desks, tall stools that people sit on. So all that kind of stuff is still coming up, but I'm pretty happy with how this is going so far. So let's go back. I am going to go here. And we're going to look at a couple more pictures because I want to show you how I made these railings. So these railings started out with cutting the top and the bottom, the exact same thing. There's no difference between the top and the bottom initially. I cut them to the same length. Then what I'll do, and it's probably better if I do it in the top down. So let's go to the top down real quick. And here you can see on the end of that, and it is focused. I hope you can see on the end of that. There is a groove underneath. This is the top here. That's the bottom. So it sits like this. This is all nice and rounded, kind of tapers in at the base like a handrail does. But I wanted to note that in the top and the bottom, there's basically a groove. And so that groove, what I was able to do is then cut the stiles you see here. And then these little short pieces, those are individual pieces. And you basically just build up the railing that way. Oops, I'm trying to go to a different picture. There it is upside down so you can see the groove. I don't need the groove in the top because when you secure the bottom up, vertical railings and stuff like that, they stay there. And then I just put the top on, glue it all up, and I got myself a rail. There you go. It's not hard to build these, though there is a process to it. And, it's something that you kind of want to, if you do want to see, I did film this whole thing. More videos coming on that, not during the live stream, but just I'll post on the thing. But how to make a rail, because I made all of this rail. I only used, a couple of pieces that big. So I got a bunch of rail left, but it's a real nice process. It makes it look really nice. And as long as you're building it just piece by piece, it goes together just great. And again, that is a video that I'm producing right now. Okay. So after the railing, that's the live shot. I need to go here. after the railing, I turned these little banisters at the end, same wood, and they're just glued on. And then I did glue these in. They're not removable into the diorama. Let's talk about that. Initially, the idea was to have this, you know, this is just the one level. There are 3 levels and an attic and 2 sub levels underground. But in general, I was going to build this so that the internal components could be moved and shifted around. And I'm only doing that because it's designed to be a playable D&D diorama, you know, so you can move stuff around for different campaigns. Normally when I'm building a diorama, all that stuff is fixed in. So I went a long way in trying to keep everything loose. Didn't do it. The number one thing that I found was a difficulty was started with the railings, but it was the walls. So these walls over these entrances, here's a wall here, and here's a wall here. These define the upright man's office from the front. Whoops, I'm dropping stuff. From the front, it looks like that. So this right here, it's a bridge over a street, and I'm trying to not step on these chairs I just dropped. And that bridge is his office. The thing I like about that is it's a nondescript. There's no windows into it that aren't like shaded because it's got, you know, these windows, so you can't really see in them. And in the storyline, when the upright man is engaged by other people, it's a room with, you know, a bright light, so you can't really see him. There's a table, a chair, and a chair. That's it. There's nothing in there to give off identity. There's nothing in there to show who he is or anything like that. There's no papers. There's no nothing. It's just a room, a nondescript room. And it's dark in there, right? So that's why I wanted that there. With that storyline of the upright man being like the top baddie in the city and the financiers there and all that kind of stuff, if the upright man should get somebody coming after him, stuff like that, he can get a high sign from the guys on the other side of the door, and he can go at a bolt hole. So that's the next thing we're going to look at here. Oh, real quick, I got to go back here. And Dances with Aardvarks is here. Hello, what scale is D&D Scale, please? Okay, that's a really good question. D&D Scale is a nondescript scale. I made it up. And the reason is there's such a wide difference between, you know, D&D figures. My neighbor is a big D&D guy, and he has his friends come over, his group that they play D&D with every single Tuesday. Boy, they are there and they play every week. So I brought him over. I've only played D&D a couple of times. But I really like the idea. And certainly my thing is building dioramas. So I'm like, yeah, I got to do that. Well, he came over and he brought 3 different figures. You know, one was an orc, one was like an elf, and one was like a troll. And I mean, they're really, I mean, you know, the orcs were like probably 3 inches tall, right? And it's a monster, sure, but there are giants and all kinds of stuff. So they're quite big. The elves were, you know, about that tall. Mages, elves, stuff like that, you know, the tall folk and things like that. And then the little tiny figures, like the ones that I have, I got a couple of here, like this guy. I mean, he's tiny, you know, he's about 1/35th scale, if you know, which is my typical scale. So when I say D&D Scale, what I mean is it's a variable. It's not a set scale, to me at least, because of the size of the figures. And so I wanted room in the diorama to be able to go in there, and I'm going to go to the top down. I wanted you to be able to go in here and reach in and work with your elements, with your characters, move them around if you're doing different things, even the big ones. And when this is all stacked together and I've got a roof on here, I can even reach in from the side and move my figure. So that's what I meant by D&D scale. It's a really variable scale because I thought I wanted to be able to have all those characters. I didn't want to restrict somebody. You've got these characters with massive, bat wings and all kinds of stuff. I wanted them in play. I wanted you to be able to put those in the diorama. So that's kind of what I went with. Thanks very much for that question, Dances with Aardvarks. That's really, really cool. I appreciate it. And I love your aardvark because that's from the old Pink Panther. And that was such a great cartoon and movies when I was growing up. Whelan says, the problem is that there is no definition for the scale throughout wargaming and miniature manufacturers. Yeah, and so they're all over the place. I think if you stick with one manufacturer, even then, you've got characters that, follow that crazy scale. So yeah, it's a little wonky, but thanks very much, Whelans. What is 28 millimeter for one manufacturer, sometimes smaller or bigger compared to another manufacturer? Absolutely. Yeah. So that's kind of why I did it. And I did also want you to get your hands in there. That was a big part of it. Having the ability to work with your characters and move them and do things with them. I thought that was pretty important. So that's kind of where I got like the height. The height of this is 4 inches. That's the height of these. I think it's 4 inches, might be 4.5. It is 4.5. So each floor is 4.5 inches, and that's where I did it. And I specifically did that, of course, because I just took my hand and I just stuck my hand in there and I said, yep, 4.5 inches. So that's how I figured that out. Okay. So what am I looking at? We're looking at this. The standing lift top desk. So I like this desk because it's period. They have this is you look at older stuff, you'll see this desk. What I don't like about this desk are the legs. I think they're too bulky. I think they look too heavy. I love the top. I think the top is great because that is supposed to, the slanted angled side, that's supposed to lift up, and you have papers and things underneath there. And you have the little flat top, that's for your inkwell and other pens and things like that. And I'm going to be making those for it. But the legs, man, they just look too big. They're just too hardy. Now, am I going to change this one? Quite possibly. I need to figure out legs. I did try to do, excuse me, some nice legs on this. But gosh, it just, I got to do something better with that. So I'm going to be making more of these. I'm going to make at least one more. And then I'm going to have a sit-down desk for like the head accountant guy, whatever. But I think I'll have 2 of these standing desks. And yeah, I think I'm going to have to do something with those legs. I just didn't like them. I didn't think they came out that great. Me. So we're going to look at this. Next is the secret panel. So this is the secret panel. And that's looking straight at it. And then that is when it is slid open. And so if we do our top down, I can orient you here so you can see in there. There's a little better. So what it is this little panel is just there and just like these other panels. And it was a single piece that I applied the vertical and horizontal trim to. And so when I cut it out, it's still tight enough that, and it's the original piece, so it matches all the leather. You can just push it back. And there's this audible little click, which is nice because it's back. And then it just slides out of the way. And so that is a bolt hole, an escape hole for the upright man to get out of his office in case that other entrance is blocked. I'm going to try to angle this up so you can see how I did the back. It's not very difficult. It is just, something that's going to trap it. So I built this up a little bit. I need to do a little bit more work here, but it's built up a little bit. And then this panel, there's just not a good way to explain it, but there's like a step. So here's the panel. And then on the back side of it, I've got this trim that gives it this little step like that. And that's how it goes in there really nicely, securely. And that when you push on it, you get that little snap. That's because it's popping out. So it just doesn't want to fall open by itself. So if someone's in there and they're looking around, they're not going to see it until a specific catch is released. Then you can pop it open and slide it open. The other thing I want to do inside there is I want to create a little bit of a booby trap, because I think that if the upright man's trying to get out of there and you slide open that panel and then you DD out of there, you get out, do you close it behind you if they're trying to come in? Maybe not. Maybe you leave it open. And then if somebody else tries to come through it, some big claw thing kind of comes down and, so I'm going to make a booby trap there. I just think that's fun stuff. And maybe even some weapons on the inside of that. But where he's going is into the warehouse where all of his loot's at. So I still have to work on that. I still have to build that kind of stuff. But I just love the little escape panel. I like that kind of stuff. I think it's fun. I think it kind of lends to the story and helps build the story based on Raymond Feist. Okay. Dances with Mark says, nice. Thanks very much. So, what do I got left? Let's take a look. There's the panel. There's it open. There's the backside. So you can see that is just a heck of a lot better picture. You can see what I was talking about. That frame around that piece that slides back and forth, that little frame here, you can see it kind of going into where it's going to lock in. And then when it closes, it actually pops into that open space. So it's closed off real nice. So it's not guided or nothing. I didn't put any specific channels in there. It's just a very, very simple sliding panel, but it works great. So that is pretty much it. That was this week. I had a wonderful time this week. It was a little bit of a busy week for other stuff, but I was really happy with my progress. I'm kind of, all of the stuff on this level, the big stuff, I think that's it. Now it's little details, it's stuff on the wall, it's, that kind of stuff. And it's time to move to another floor. I do have ideas of what I want to do inside the warehouse, and I'm going to kind of go back over here and show you the warehouse real quick. And, just so you can get another grounding of what the heck I'm talking about. So this again is the top portion of Barrett's coffee house. And down here, these two levels, that's Barrett's coffee house. It's a 2-story coffee house. Here's the level we've been talking about, this top level. There's the bridge where the upright man's office is. And this is the accounting offices of Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe, medieval accountants. This whole warehouse, and this is just a corner of the warehouse. This is not like a really thin warehouse. It's just a corner, because it's cut away. But that whole warehouse, I guess I just need to kind of figure out the kind of things I want in there, because it really comes back to the point of, I want it interesting. I want to tell the story. I want connections back to the storyline, but it's just, it has to have that ability to grab you if you don't know the story. That's the big deal about the diorama. I love the story from Raymond Feist and the world that he's created and all of the books that I've read and all that kind of stuff. But I need to make this thing recognizable for people that don't know that story, that don't know Raymond Feist. It still has to be engaging. It still has to tell its own story without that precondition of the reading of the book. So that's the kind of stuff that the details are going to do. The details will tell that story. The details that I put in it will make that so when you look in there, you don't go, what is this with this office? You need to know immediately that it's an accounting office without any signage, without anything. You have, I mean, it's going to probably look kind of like a lawyer or a bank or an accounting, but it's an accounting office. So I got to make sure that it looks like an accounting office. The warehouse, you have to understand just by the first half second of looking that it's stolen articles, right? It's like, it's just got to be a cache of stolen articles, and then all kinds of stuff in there. There's an oubliette. There's a lot of stuff that's going on in that warehouse. But for the person that doesn't know Feist, you know, that doesn't have the story, which is where I'm going to display my dioramas, you know, people that typically aren't going to know the whole story, I've got to make it recognizable, and that's what the details do. They support the story, they engage you, they want you to look further, they want you to they don't force you to, but they're engaging enough that you want to, you know, really get into the diorama and see all that's there. And that, I think, is the trick. And that's something that I'm always striving to do with my dioramas, really trying to make it so it's so engaging. You want to learn about it. You want to, if there is something there to read, you want to read it, because I've seen a lot of people, when they're presenting their diorama, they'll put a lot of text or a lot of, you know, backstory or something like that so you can understand it. If the diorama doesn't look good enough, they're not going to read it, period. It's just, I've seen it too many times. They just don't. If you're depending on the story that you've written on little placards or whatever to tell your story, you've kind of missed the boat. And I don't want to be cruel about that. But when you're building a diorama, it is a visual thing, right? It can't have anything that, well, you got to know this first. It can't be that way. It must engage, and it has to tell the story visually, very first thing. And then maybe you can introduce other things that maybe people are going to want to read. Maybe people are going to want to go ahead and look further into. But if it's not engaging at first, you'll never get them. And they just walk right by. So that's the part that I'm doing next. So thank you so much. I do want to say thank you to my patrons. I have new patrons, and I talked about them last week, but I'm going to talk about them again because it is so cool that people are now finding the patron channel. I believe they're liking the things that I got, that I'm posting up there. I've got 3 levels, and those different levels of patron allow you to get different things, to include, I mean, if you want, I don't know if you do, but, you know, we can do one-on-ones, and that's something that's really fun. I do that with John, mostly, you know, John Robeck and I, we meet every Friday evening, and I missed a couple this year just because of stuff, but we meet every Friday evening, and we build and we BS and we talk dioramas, and it's live. It's not just me yammering. It's you're on it too. And so we have a wonderful exchange, and I don't know if a lot of model building gets done, but a heck of a lot of model talk, tools, techniques, ideas. I really want to build one of these one day, that kind of thing. So it's really fun. And that's part of Patreon. So, or Patreon. I guess it's Patreon. Yeah. So if you're interested in that, head over to my Patreon page and you can become a member. And we'll sign you up. It'll be fun. Okay. So thank you so much, everyone. I've got some more comments. I don't want to miss anybody. Scott says, the escape panel is really cool. I've got my mom's old lap desk her dad made for her, no legs on it, and it's lap size. Thanks for sharing your knowledge with us. Great show today. Thanks, Bill. Thank you very much, Scott. And I talk to Scott every single day. I talk to a lot of people in our community almost every day. And the fun thing about that is I'm getting ideas. Winston, Wister, John, Scott, Angela, a bunch of people throw me ideas all the time because, you know, I'm into this stuff, but other people are too, and they make wonderful suggestions. And I even see folks in my comments and stuff like that talking to each other. So it's really fun. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, I would encourage you to look up my Patreon and maybe like it. I also have a membership on YouTube that you can do. But I haven't put a lot there, to be quite honest with you. I want to put more. John and I have talked about it. John is like my silent partner in all of this. John Robeck has been there almost from the very, very start. He and Evan. And man, I'll tell you, it's really fun because John has a lot more knowledge than in different areas, and stuff that I don't, like electronics and stuff like that. And he's also worked in the movie industry. So John gives me a heck of a lot of input and feedback and great ideas and stuff like that. And I really enjoy that. And it's neat to see when folks will kind of talk to each other in the comments about stuff that it's really, really awesome. I really thank you. So there's things about doing this channel that are just something I didn't expect. And that's one of them. John's awesome. John's my guy. So thanks, John. I really appreciate it. Paul, hello, Paul. Paul usually is in early, but he maybe just missed a little bit late today. But thanks very much for coming in, Paul. I appreciate it. There's John. It's a fun time, and I learned so much. Well, thanks, Paul. And I learned too. And John's talking about like our nightly thing. Well, it's not nightly, but it's every Friday night. We get together, except for one time a month. On the third weekend of the month, we do a 3-hour, because it's usually 2 hours. We do a 3-hour. Everybody, all patrons, all paid patrons, I should say, are invited to that group build. Now, that monthly group build on Patreon, I'm trying to find a better time to do it. Last month, I did it on Sunday, and I didn't get anybody in there because I just announced it the couple days before, but nobody showed up. But I'm trying to find a time where more people can do it for the monthly. I think John and I are pretty dialed in, and John, unless you want to change it, I think Friday nights are great for us, and that's 2 hours each Friday night. But the one that goes longer, the monthly one for all the folks on the Patreon, I really am trying to find the best time to do that so more people can participate. I really want you to have the opportunity to ask questions or whatever, or interact with us, on a time that works for folks. And in the summer, it's hard, I guess, but winter is starting, and I'm a football fan. And so I'm thinking about doing it on Sundays during football games. Typically what I do, I'm a huge Seahawks fan. And typically what I do is I have the football game going up there on my TV, but I'm building. So I can, watch the game-ish, kind of watch it, but I can hear it. And if there's something cool, I just rewind. But I love watching football while I'm building. So that might be something that we can do. I obviously can't show you my football games, but you could be watching your football game and we're on building at the same time. So that's an idea for this Sunday to do our group builds. Scott, it's your magnetic personality. Thank you very much. I don't know. I don't know how to say what to say, Scott, but thank you. I appreciate that. And then John says, thank you, Bill, the same. Yeah, because I just love working with John. It's just great. And I know there's other people that I work with out there that I talk to about my projects and stuff, and their contributions are just so fun. I mean, lots of times I don't think of stuff. I mean, I can't think of everything. And I get these great ideas. And it doesn't mean that if you say, hey, do this, I'm going to do it. It means, hey, that's a really interesting idea. Let's go explore it. And that happens a lot. And then some of those things work into the dioramas, which is so fun. And when those things happen, and I guess one of the reasons I'm talking like all about these folks is these are people that are contributing to what you see on my channel. I want you to know that. It's not just me. Yeah, I'm doing a lot of the work and stuff like that, but these ideas, which are so important, that's what comes through the channel. That's what I get from people, commenting on my videos and stuff like that. It's this coordinated contribution to try to get these things out. Those ideas, sometimes it's a completely different thing that I was thinking of, and then it just shifts because somebody has a great idea. I love that. I think it's really fun. So anyway, I keep going on and on about it, but I'm kind of that way. I like to watch movies or watch live streams while I build. Yeah, I totally. And I do it when I'm building. I like to watch a movie that I know. I don't want to watch, like when Dune came out, the new Dune and the Dune 2. I couldn't watch those while I'm building because I'm interested and I want to watch them and I want to pay attention. And, I have to do movies that I've seen a billion times, which like Star Wars and stuff like that. So that's typically the movies that I watch there because I'm so familiar with the movie that as I'm just listening to it, the movie's playing in my brain, but I don't have to be looking at the screen. I love doing that. And if you haven't done that, if you haven't watched a movie that you know very well and not watched it, but just listened to it, I can promise you, I don't care if you've seen Star Wars 200 times or whatever your favorite movie is. It doesn't have to be Star Wars, certainly. But if you're watching your movie or listening to your movie, not watching it, I can 100% tell you, you will pick up things that you never saw. I don't care how many times you watched it. Because when you're looking at it, you get distracted by sound and movement and the visuals and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes you interpret what somebody says just because of what's happening. You don't really understand what they say. Then when you're listening to it and not watching it, but you know the movie and these scenes come up and you're listening and you know what scene's coming up and then you'll go, wait a minute, I never knew he said that, or that person said that or did that, or that's what they were talking about the whole time. This happens. It totally happens to me all the time when I'm watching movies I've watched for 20 years, and I am that kind of person that like watches movie again and again and again. I don't know why. I just like doing that. I have my favorite movies. I've watched Caddyshack, Jimmy, I don't know, 150 times or well more. I don't know. But, just dumb stuff like that. It's neat when you pick those things up. There are those little things that you didn't know were there. Those subtleties in a movie. It's really fun. And I think it's kind of indicative of what I kind of like to try to do with my dioramas. I'm working on a video right now that is all about details. And it's on my World War I trench diorama, Fire Beneath the Somme. And I've talked to John about it, and he's got a preview, and it's kind of fun. But that video that I'm doing right now, it's all about building your diorama with details, and those details help explain the story. They help keep you grounded. They draw you into it. And I also like to put Easter eggs in my dioramas. So that video that I'm producing right now, it's going to come out here hopefully darn soon. But it really goes into how I place things in a scene, how I light the scene, what constitutes like a focal point in your diorama, something that draws the eye in and gives a very strong message, where the other things around it, like the other details around it, maybe aren't so strong. But because of that focal point strength, it says something, it represents something. That representation flows to everything else in the room. I hope that makes sense. It means that I'm putting things in my dioramas that are so interesting, that sets the scene. Remember when I said the accounting office has to look like an accounting office? That's not necessarily easy to do. How do I make a medieval accounting office look like a medieval accounting office with no signage? It's, you know what I'm saying? So it's that kind of thing that this video that I'm editing right now is all about. Building your diorama, building those details, putting those things in there so there are non-verbal, no reading, but the story emerges. The story grabs you right away. It's got that engagement. It has that interest. It has something that you can interpret and understand without anything else going on, just the visuals. So I think that'll be a fun video. I'm kind of thinking, I'll talk to John about it tonight, but I'm kind of thinking it's either this next Tuesday, the first episode's going to come out, or the following one. I don't know. I have 40 plus minutes edited, and so that's like the whole video, and there's more to go. But what I want to do is chop it up into 10-minute videos. Actually, the first one's going to be like 22, just because there's so much data that I can't pull out. So the first one's going to be longer, but that'll be the first video. And then the reason I'm doing it that way is so I have other videos, so you're not like waiting 2 months between, a long form video. So I can do them like probably every other week is how I'll do it. I don't know if I want to do every week. It's just really grueling and really difficult to do. But I think that that'll look really nice when it's done. And it'll talk about all this, the details, where I'm at right now in the diorama, building those details. It will be for my other diorama, but I think it'll be a lot of fun. So thank you so much, everybody. So grateful that you guys found the channel and you enjoy it. I hope you do. I really enjoy doing this. And remember, it's every Friday, right at noon. I do a short every day at 10. I missed a couple last week, but I'm back on the horse here. Not last week, but the week before. And then these long form videos that I edit during the day, those are coming out here soon too. So thank you so much, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I have nothing going on this weekend. I had a show I was going to go to, and I just can't make it. But I am going to be here in the shop building, and should be a lot of fun. And I hope some fun videos will come out of it. So thank you so much, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful August weekend coming up, and we'll see you next time.